See that?
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So all right. So this is so what we're gonna do is we're gonna quickly add this persistent login using Angular cookies to the wall demo part 1, right? So in the wall demo part 1, we built out the login and reg, and we stopped there. In part 2, we started building the wall again. Now, with the login and reg, we did the bcrypt encryption, but we did not implement any cookies to have the user persistently being logged in. That means that every time you refresh the page, you would be logged out again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So it's really, really easy to implement Angular cookies. And here I have a project that already has implemented this cookies. So I'm going to reference this code over here, and we're going to add it to just the wall demo with login, the code that is on the GitHub repo at the end of the video for the wall part 1 demo. Okay? So right now, let's run this wall part 1 demo code just to see what we have. Right? So node_mon, it's over 9,000. So we go to 9,000, and here we got this login and reg page here, which is where we left off by the end of the demo part 1. Okay. So right now, let's say I'm going to register. Let's say test1 email test1@test1.com. Password, it's just going to be some random password. We're going to register. That's already registered. Okay, I guess we can just log in then. Password incorrect. Oh, look at all my validations are working. So test1@test1.com. There we go. We're in, right? So we have logged in, but if we refresh the page, look at that. The name didn't show up again. So that means I'm logged out. Now it should have kicked me back.
Yeah.
But right now we built that feature out in the demo part 2. But what we want to do is that once we are logged in, it will be, a cookie will be saved.
Yeah.
To log that user back in as soon as, someone reaches this page. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is, well, even before we put in Angular cookies, right? We're going to make it so that if you are not logged in, you cannot even see this page. Right? Right now you can get here and it doesn't kick you back. We're going to make it kick you back if there's no user that is logged in. Okay? So the way we do that is we go to, let me see where this code is. Here it is. It's going to make this code full screen. So I'm going to go to the client. We can close all of this stuff. We're going to start over. We're going to go to the client, static, JavaScript, controllers, right? So in the login controller, this is all the code that we have. In the wall controller, from here down, this is the code that we have. So we are going to go, okay, so when we get to the login controller, it's going to console log in the wall controller. Scope.user is empty. I'm going to get the user from the factory. And here I'm going to say if, or right here after we get this data, I'm going to say if $scope.user _ID, if you do not have this, underscore ID property, I know that there is no user being saved here in the scope.user. So therefore, I'm going to kick you out. So the way I do that is I add location, and here I go location.url parentheses, kicking back to the root. Okay. So now, before I do that, I want to console log kicking you out, right? So that we can see that indeed this part did its job. Okay, you got that?
Yep.
All right. So we're going to save that. We're going to go back over here. We're going to refresh. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before without a user being logged in. I'm going to try to go to the wall partial, and boom, look at that, kicking you out. So they kick me out back to this page, right? So now we can start with adding the cookies. So the way you add cookies, first of all, this is the code that has a working version of this. So notice that in the Bower components, you have Angular Angular cookies and Angular route. So where we left it off, we had Angular and Angular route. We did not have Angular cookies. We're going to use that. So we're going to go ahead and do the Bower download that. Okay. So open up a new tab in that same folder there, and we are going to type Bower install Angular cookies, like that, right? We got to make sure that the name is like that. Okay, boom. So it's going to install Angular cookies for us. Okay, so once that's done, to confirm that it has installed, we're going to go to the code that we're working with, and we're going to look in Bower components. And if we see Angular cookies, then we're good, right? Okay, so now that we have installed Angular cookies, we're going to go into our index.html, and we are going to require Angular cookies just like we did with the other dependencies from Bower, right? So this one is called Angular cookies, right? Let's see if that is the name of it. Yes, Angular cookies.min.js, this one, right? It's minified so that you can see this code it goes long. Okay, so once we have that dependency, we will require it in our HTML, this line here. And what we need to do is once we have it required, we're going to add it here in our dependency injection. We're going to inject this dependency into the Angular app. Okay, so in addition to ng route, I'm going to have what's called ng cookie, like that. And I just want to make sure that this is the correct name, so I'm going to reference this code that I've already done and make sure that it's called Angular cookies. There we go. ng cookies, like that. Okay, so once we have that, we are able to use the $cookies within our code, right? So if we go to our clients, static JavaScript controllers, and this is the one that's pre-built, right? You see that in the login controller, I have required this cookies dependency here. So we are going to do that for our code in this wall part one. So we're going to go to controllers, and on the top here, we're going to add cookies to our login controller, right? Cool. Okay, so now once we have that, right when the login controller loads, we're going to check to see if a cookie already exists, right? The way we do that is this line of code here. And feel free to just copy this line of code like that, and I will explain what this code does in a minute, right? So we're going to copy it down in here. And what it is it looks for existing cookie and would do stuff depending on if the cookie exists. Actually, I wrote that comment on the other project, so this is a good description, right? So this is a function. It's called check cookie. It's creating a variable called cookie, and this can be named anything you want, but I called it cookie. And it's going to be equal to, this is using the keyword now, this is using this guy, cookies.get, and the name of the cookie that you're getting, which in this case, we just name it cookie. So it's going to try to get that, and it's going to get whatever is here, and it's going to store it in this variable. So this guy is going to either exist or not exist. If it doesn't exist, then this variable is just undefined. If it does exist, it's going to contain some stuff in it, right? So if the cookie is undefined, right? If it does not exist, then we're going to console log no cookie found, okay? Or else, that means there is a cookie, there is an existing cookie. It's going to console log cookie found, and it's going to show you what the cookie is. And over here, I did that twice just to be sure that we see what it is, right? Cool. So something to mention, and this is very important, is that you can only save strings in a cookie. Oh. The only thing a cookie can save is a string.
Can't do an array.
No, you cannot do an array. You cannot do an object. If you want to save an object, which I'm doing now, I will teach you how to do. You can save an object, but you got to make it a string and save it. And when you get it out, you got to convert the string to an object again. right? So in my code, I do that. So instead of just saving the user ID that is logged in, I save the entire user's data. Now, this is not very secure, right?
Yeah.
And in production, in the real world, you very, very rarely will do that because it really is like you're saving the entire user's data on a cookie that can be accessed and hacked and stolen, right? That's not good practice.
Yeah.
But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm saving the entire object just because we're lazy, and also to show you that it can be done. In the real world, you would want to save just the user ID, so that that's not like sensitive information. But if you have the ID, you can go to the database and get that user's info if you check out, right? Yeah. So therefore, when the hackers steal the cookies, it's no big deal, right? They just get your user ID. That's no big deal, right? Especially if your password is not encrypted, if you save the entire object in the cookie, guess what? The password's in there. Yeah, and if it's not encrypted, it's in there, right? But we encrypted the password. That's at least a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But for the sake of this video, we're just going to do this, okay? So what we do is, if there is an existing cookie, we will console log this stuff to show us there's a cookie, and we're going to set the user data in the factory and then redirect us to the wall, right? Because now we have the cookie, we have this data of the user. So we gotta send the user to the factory to set it. So in the factory, we can get that data. Now, before we send it, we're gonna parse it into JSON. So the cookie right now is a string. We're gonna make it a JSON object, and we're just gonna run this function here, which we will see the same exact function inside of the login function and the registration function, which is basically like once you do all the stuff to log in and register, you're gonna get back some data from the database, and you're gonna send that data to the factory, and then it's gonna redirect you to the wall, which is the exact same thing we did before. Okay.
Right.
So instead of getting data from the factory, we're getting that data from the cookie. So it's kind of like you just logged in with that data. As long as you have the data. Yeah. So that's what we do, right? So this part, that's doing that. Now, after we define the function, obviously we have to run the function, right? Check cookie. So we run the function right here. Now, if I wanted to log out, it's really just a matter of one line of code. So what I do is, it's this line here, log out user, right? And I borrowed this from, I think it was Charlie's code, but it's very well done. So I'm just gonna borrow it here. Make sure that it's indented properly. There we go. We're gonna log out the user right here. And when this function is run, when this scope.clear cookie function is run, it's going to do these two things. First, it's going to remove the cookie, and this is a special keyword, $cookies.remove, and it's removing this specific cookie that we've defined here, right? Now, and then after that, it's going to run this function again, and at this point, you should see no cookie found. That's how we know that it worked. Okay? So in order for us to actually be able to log out, we need to create a button for that, right? So in our partials, login reg, this is where all the stuff is. I'm just right here, I'm just gonna make a button. And I'm gonna give this button an ng click equals to, that was what was the name of that function? Clear cookie, this one right here. So we're gonna put in this function in the ng click, and in the button, it'll just be called clear cookie, or you can just call it logout. It's the same thing. So if we do that, let's go look at our site. Boom, we have this button here, and we have this no cookie found right when the screen loaded, right? So right now there's no cookies. So if I click on it, you'll see that it ran that code again for the cookies, and it still got no cookie found, and that's good, right? Whenever we click that. So now what we want to do is when we log in or register, once we get the data back from our database, we want to set the cookie as soon as we get the data back from the database, but before we actually transition to the wall page. Okay. So the way we do that is we're going to set the cookie. So look at here, we got cookies.get. Now we're going to use a cookie.set, and really that's just one line of code, or cookie.put. So here in the register user, and this is all the same that you guys got from the wall part 1, here, right after we do the login factory set user, we're going to get a callback saying that the user is already set in the factory, in the login factory. So at this point, we will set the cookie and then redirect to the wall, right? So you guys should have this already there. In addition to that, we're just going to add this line of code here, right? So we're going to go ahead and add that into our register function, scope.register, register user, boom. So you guys should have this code, and you just add it in here like that, right? So we set the cookie, and then we redirect. So right now I'm putting this cookie into this cookie property here, and I'm going to JSON.stringify the output.data, which is the user object. Now, I could totally just put the user ID here, which would be more secure, but then I would have to do an extra step to get from the ID. I would have to go to the database and get the user again when it's being logged in, which I'm not going to do now because I'm just going to stringify the JSON data and save it in the cookie, right? So this guy is the counterpart to this one, JSON.parse, right?
Okay.
If you stringify it and you want to make it a JSON again, that's when you do the JSON.parse. Yeah. So that's a counterpart. So after I log in, I'm going to do that. After I register, I'm going to do that. After I log in, I'm going to do that, the same thing, right? So here will be the same. Set the cookie and then redirect, right? And that is all that we need, I think, to create a persistent login. Now let's see if that works, right? So right now, there's no cookie found. If I try to go to the wall, it'll kick me back. It'll say kicking you out, no cookie found. So I'm still on this page, right? But now if I log in, I'm logged in. Hello test1, that's my username.
Nice.
Now, if I refresh the page, I'm still here with the user. Yeah, it shows up again. So it's persistent login. So what really happens when I click refresh, this is what happens. First, when I click refresh, it goes to the wall. And if it goes into the factory and it does not return a user, so it kicks me back. Right here, it's kicking you out. It kicks me back to the login page. And in the login page, I have found a cookie. That cookie is this big ass string here which is one big string of JSON data.
Yeah.
And because I found the cookie, I go and I do
Send you back to the wall.
yeah, well, because I have the cookie, that's where it's going to console log, and then I'm going to set the user data in the factory, and then it's going to redirect me to the wall, which in effect kind of just logs me in again, right? So, and that's why you see this flash. So the thing will be gone, and then the wall will appear again. So it just logged me back in again, put me into the wall, okay? So at this point, there is no way I can get back to the login page. Every time I go back to the login page, it's going to redirect me to the wall.
Nice.
See? Yeah, and over here, we can put the same code for the log out right here because you guys will need to do the log out functionality. So really, it's just this is the code we're working with. So you just copy this line of code, log out, log user out, and all you do is you put it in the wall controller here, and you add the $ cookies here, right? So you can use this $ cookies. So here, we're just going to make a button called clear cookie in the wall partial. So in the login reg partial, we have this button. But in the wall partial, we're just going to add that button here, right? So now, in the wall, cookies, yep, cookies, good. So in the wall, when I'm logged in, I see this clear cookie. I can click it, check cookies not defined. Ah, okay. It's because in my wall controller, I don't have this method. So, okay, so what I want to do is I just want to log. I want to console log your cookie is 10. Okay, so the cookie is gone, right? And then if I do that, if I refresh the page, kicking you out, no cookie found, right? I'm going to do test1 at test1.com. I'm going to log in. I'm going to refresh. Still going to be logged in, right? Because there's a cookie. Now if I clear the cookie, your cookie is eaten, right? And now if I refresh the page, it kicks me back to the login page. But just one extra line of code here will allow me to, as soon as I clear the cookie, it'll kick me out. So that's this guy. Redirect me back to the root. Remove the cookie, tell me that the cookie is eaten, and then redirect me back to the root. So that is the final touch of, so test1, test1.com, log in. I refresh, I'm still logged in, right? Still logged in. Now click that, boom, back.
Nice.
No cookie found. And if I refresh the page, it'll keep me on this page because the cookie is gone, it's eaten, right? So
no cookie till you send it.
Yep, that's how you do it.
Sweet.
Sweet.